Is it? Yeah, okay, that's great. All right, it works, yeah! So, I wanted to say, come in front because there are a lot of chairs here still, but now everybody's already sitting. So please come a bit. There's enough space here, so just take a seat. So this is actually a first for me. I have been introduced to do a talk several times by Allard, but now for me this is the first time I get the chance to actually introduce Allard himself. So that's such an honor to me, so awesome. No, kidding, of course. We're going to do our, well, the thing that always reoccurs at our conference, and that is the state and future. So talking a bit about the things we have been doing as a team, and the things that we are going to do, and why we think that's going to be the thing to do in the future. So without further ado, I want you, well, to applaud for Allard.
Thank you very much, Steven. Last year I actually made fun of the title because we talk about event sourcing all the time and how much better it is in state. Who cares about state, right? It's all about the history. But here it is again. We're making the same mistake over and over again. Does that sound familiar? But let me make another joke this time. So what defines the state of a company? And Giel, are you here? There you go. That's our numbers guy. He'll say, well, that's the balance sheet and the P&L and blah, blah, everything. Nice numbers, Excel sheets, and that's the state of the company. Let me, here on stage, openly disagree with that. I think what defines the state of the company is the people in the company. And this is a picture taken approximately, exactly, a year ago, after day one of the conference, and weird things happen if you put a lot of Axonic people in the same room. And the only safe way to do that is to make sure there's a lot of other people in that same room, and then they kind of behave. But when those other people are gone, things happen. So at the beginning of the year, Jeroen and I decided that, hey, we should put those people, you know, the crazy bunch, let's take a mountain and put them on that mountain and see what happens, right? See what comes out of that. And there's a common theme in every gathering of Axonic people. And no matter where we go, no matter what composition we have of a team, it is always somewhat similar. It always evolves around food, drinking, more food, and even people feeding other people. Now, if that is not the culmination of teamwork, I do not know what is. Well, it was in Italy, so it's not really that difficult to find food that is actually nice to consume, right? Fortunately, in those days, we've also done some workshops, right? We were defining what it is that we want to do with our future, not just this year, but also a little bit longer term. Do we really want to kill that aggregate, right? That kind of stuff. And most of those workshops were pretty serious. As you can see, we were doing some really serious stuff. I mean, they were even listening to the CEO. That doesn't happen very often. And some of them were serious, and some of them were awkward. That's the same person again, yeah. Hint. Anyway, some of those workshops were quite awkward. I think Milan thought it was really funny, though. And some of those workshops were unfortunate. And in this case, it was a workshop, how to get a brand new iPhone from under a brand new deck, where the spacing in between the boards was just enough to get the iPhone out. The iPhone is kind of still alive. I'm not sure about the deck, actually, but we don't really care. So that's Team Axonic, right? And I think we're doing fine. We're all alive. We're still eating, and everything is good. But of course, there's more than just us out there. I think the state of Axonic, or Axon, is also greatly defined by its community, right? And how do you measure community? Well, you look at any measurement you can take. You take the one that grows the largest, and you pick that one. And I do this every year, and every year there's a graph of the number of downloads. And this is still for us a metric that we don't fully comprehend. We don't really know what exactly a download means, and let alone who downloaded it, anything, but it is a number, and it gives us a very good early indicator of what's going on in the market. If people really are not interested, something will have to go down, right? So I've been sharing this metric, as you can see, for quite a while, and I literally just copy-paste the numbers from my last year's slides, and then I add the new number. Fortunately, I have a bit of a scaling issue, because as you can see, the graph goes up and up and up, and quite, well, it seems to go up faster every year, which is nice. We've reached 18.5 million downloads, and of course that's cumulative now downloads. And as you can see from the differences become bigger as well. Does anyone see the lie in that statement? There's one big gap, 4.5 million to 12.2. That was COVID. We decided to not do a conference because we did an online one where we announced the 4.5. And who likes online conferences? Okay, thanks. Oh, there was one hand. All right, no, they're all online. They're watching online. All right. So we decided not to do a conference that year. It was either we meet each other or we just don't talk to each other. It's that simple. We've also been working quite a bit on our developer portal. Right? It's something we announced last year. It was being worked on. Well, it's still being worked on, but it's there at least. And it contains a lot of information for developers that are looking at using Axon and finding out what it can do for specifically developers. Right? And of course, there's always work to do, so we'll continue expanding that. How many of you are aware of AxonIQ Academy? That's good. How many of you have completed at least one course on it? Why do people, the show of hands on the first one, why did you not raise your hand on the second go? Were you lazy, or did you just not follow the course yet? Or is that? So some of those courses are free. Some of them are not, but we hope they bring a lot more value than the cost that they bear. So the idea is that there's a lot of courses, and we're still working on some of them, and it's a little bit more work than we anticipated, but we have high quality standards, right? We want to get those courses either up there as invaluable and not have any weird things that don't make sense. So we've been in a recording studio quite a bit. I say we, but I have to, honestly, it's them, right? There's one course that I've done, but it was mostly Stephen and as you can see here, Bert. Thank you, Bert. Where are you? He's in the back. And the thing is that in those courses, there's a lot of videos, and the videos are all marked with different topics. So if you want to jump to a specific topic and get your knowledge in just a little bit faster, you can even speed up. You can do 2-speed. But of course, at the end, you want to know, did I really understand everything? Because hearing somebody say something to you is one thing, but truly understanding it might be another. So there's also a test at the end. Right? You can just check if you've really understood what you've just heard. So I wanted to do something crazy, and I thought, let me see if there's any statistics in this platform that I can find. And I did, and I thought, hey, is there somebody who did an actual achievement, right? Who did the most courses on our platform? So the most completed courses award, or these are the nominees, right? Does anyone recognize their own name? There was a third one. No? Okay, too bad. Too bad for you. These are the 3 people that completed the most courses, but there's one of the 3 that completed one more than the others. Please give a big hand to Uwe. he's online, right? So I thought, okay, that's nice. Completed courses, that's an achievement. But you can complete a course and really, well, some people wouldn't call it completed, but you can complete it and really don't understand anything of the subject. So we also have a test, and the test measures the number of questions you've answered correctly, right? And those people here, have spent a lot of time creating a lot of questions, so you get a random set of questions, so everybody is fairly tested, but in a slightly different way, right? There's no cheating. We don't like cheating. So we thought, okay, let's build a top 3 of who are the best performers on our platform, who have the most thorough understanding of the thing that they've been learning. And the scores are pretty high. I excluded all the AxonIQ people. For some really, really weird reason, with no exception, they all had a 100% score. I'm not sure if we should applaud for that or if there's some trickery in there, so I'll leave it to you. But I would definitely like to have an applause for Dominic and Azir. I don't know if... I know Dominic is here. I've seen him. There you are. Congrats. Azir, are you in the room? Nope. Too bad for you. But then I noticed, hey, Jaroslav, he completed a lot more courses than the other 2. So, congratulations. So what does it mean to be on this list? Well, you get applause, right? You're welcome. But please pass by Marina afterwards and grab your T-shirt and wear it with pride. You deserve it.
Thank you.
So I hope you're aware that we also have a Discuss platform. It was, again, announced last year. It was really new, and there was barely any content on that. And we see a pretty good traction of the number of questions that are being asked on that platform. And fortunately, we also see those questions being answered, not only by AxonIQ people, but also by others in the community. And I think this is really important. We want to be a point of connecting people in the community and not being the ones that you always answer everything, right? Being the connecting dot in this, this network of what we call the community is probably more important. So if you feel like answering any of those questions, if you think you know the answer, feel free to provide your answer, right? There's no such thing as the only right answer. It always depends. And I do want to talk a little bit about partners, because the community also consists of certain companies that have, that do slightly more with Axon than certain other companies. And we work together with quite a few of them in different ways. So if you see your own logo there, thank you. And we have different types of partners, right? Some of them are consulting and implementation partners, so they do the projects. The talk right before this one was one of the examples of such a project that is performed by partners. Because in the end, we don't want to do project work. We don't like it. No, it's others can do that much better than we do. Right? So and others are training partners. We have people that, hey, you want to build the knowledge? Great. We can connect you to a company nearby you, and you can decide whether or not you want to engage with those partners. Right? Again, we're just the connecting dots. And the last one is technology partners. We do like to connect and integrate with other technologies that sometimes seem very conflicting, if you will, with some of the choices we made. But we do realize that an Axon application will never run on its own. It is always connected to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world might be, well, there's weird stuff out there. I mean, we all know that. So we work together with a couple of companies to make sure that there are smooth connectors and to work with those technologies. Enough about community. Well, never enough about community, but time moves on. Last year, we've been working on quite a few things. Some things end up seeing the daylight, some things don't. Experimentation comes with its failures and its learnings, and that's really lovely. That's actually where you learn the most. But some of the products that you know are, well, the framework server, data protection. Does anyone not know the data protection module that we have? Sometimes you're forced to forget something, but if you're also forced to remember it, that might give you an interesting conflict. So if you have an event-sourced application where you're basically kind of forced to remember everything, how do you get rid of the data you want to get rid of without losing your entire history? And that's what that module takes care of. And there's AxonIQ Cloud. But there's a new kid in town, which I will talk about later. We'll keep it under the covers. First, Axon Framework. So last year, I played a little game. And I'm wondering if I should have. And I was wondering, should I just forget about it, not do it this year? But I know there's a few people out here, yes, that remember everything, and they will come up to me and say, hey, what happened to the Git game, blame game? So the Git blame game is, well, we've all played it at some point. You see a piece of source code, and you think, who the hell built this bunch of... You do Git blame, or annotate, as it is called in a more friendly environment. And very often you realize, oops, it was me. Right? But the fun thing about it is you can do Git blame on an entire code base, and then just count the number of lines that every person owns, right? It's a form of ownership, right? You changed it, you're now responsible. If a production problem happens, you fix it. You'll see why I say this, by the way. So last year, I was immensely proud that Axon Framework was still mostly owned by me. Barely, we have to say, right? Last year. I don't know what happened. I do know, I mean, Stephen, with all due respect, he is very specific about code style, which I think is a good thing. I think it has to do with what happened to the numbers. My code is obviously so obnoxious that at least a third of it had to be removed and changed into something else. And he single-handedly did that. So congrats, Stephen. So you now own it. It's yours. Take good care of it. All right. But again, that's, again, us, right? And community is much wider than us. So yes, of course, the volume of lines of code is slightly different with the external committers, because let's be honest, to take the step and commit into a code base that you have not written in itself is a big step, right? And then for others to publicly see what you've done might be another hurdle that we take. So this is the winners of last year. Is anyone here by any chance? Last year they weren't, but we know who they are. We know, actually of some of them, we know where they live. And something happened which was actually quite interesting. So this is the three people that contributed most that are not, or have not been part of the Axon team. So even if they committed outside of the Axon team, once you're one of us, you're disqualified for life. Let that be a warning. But Tim beat Elin. Right? By a few lines, barely, probably by carefully selecting what to do in the framework, but I don't know. But yeah, too bad you aren't here. You would have heard the applause if you were here. They'll certainly see this on YouTube someday. But as I said, there's people that... Or it's a big step to do that commit, right? That first commit is the biggest life-changing event. No, it's not true, but it is a big step. So I do want to, how do you say, stand still for a moment? No, you think for a moment about those hidden heroes, the small heroes that have gone through signing the contributor license agreement, which sounds like a very scary form that you have to agree that, hey, you're giving us this code, but we're not going to be liable for anything that you do, right? And these people have gone through that process and did one commit to Axon in their lifetime. It's actually quite a few. I hope you can read them. If you recognize your name, the applause is for you. All right, let's move on. So what's new? What have we built in Axon? And we have had a few releases, two. I'm very close to the third one, releases of Axon Framework. So in 4.7, I think the biggest thing is that we realized that Quartz, do you remember Quartz? Who uses Quartz? Have you seen what the last commit on Quartz was? Do you think it's a month ago? Half a year ago? Year ago? Year and a half ago? Come on, speed up, 2 years? No, it's more than 2 years ago. And something tells me that in those last 2 years, there's been certain vulnerabilities in frameworks. So I'm pretty sure there must be something in there. So it was kind of scary. So we decided to go out and find a few other scheduling tools. And even though we don't use much of the scheduler and Quartz works fine, we're kind of scared that we say use Quartz and then some CVE hits you, right? So be careful with that. So in 4.7, we added job runner support. There's other stuff. It is pretty specific. I mean, repository beanwang through generics. Is that important to anyone right here? Actually, in some cases, yes. We found cases where it's important, so that's why we built it. Fun fact is that is actually what completely destroyed the Spring Native compilation step afterwards. So I had a lot of figuring out to do how to make those two work at the same time. And the last one is probably the most noticeable for anyone who uses Axon Server. We've noticed that you guys really like to look for all of the dangers in the network, right? Make sure there's all sorts of components in that network that it can all break. And what we've noticed is that the gRPC protocol, which is a protocol that we use between Axon Framework and Axon Server, is actually a protocol that is understood by some load balancers. So they try to get smart. So if we tell that load balancer, hey, or we tell the endpoint, are you there? The load balancer says, yes, I'm here. Okay, cool, Axon Server is alive. No, it's not. The load balancer is alive and responding on our behalf. So we already had this heartbeat feature that basically speaks a language the load balancers don't understand. So they just get a message and want to transport it towards the backend. And that really gives you the certainty that the application actually can speak to the Axon Server it believes it's connected to. And we didn't enable that by default, but as of 4.7, it is enabled by default. It does not cause you to download half of the internet, so it's a very small message that is sent every few seconds. And then we got to 4.8. And in 4.8, we added a few more things. And as you can see, the kind of stories are not, they're not immense, right? They're not huge kind of differences. And that has to do with a bit of focus. And we were working on something else at the same time. By the way, you do see in 4.8, the Spring AOT support was improved. That means it kind of started working again. But the native support was still quite limited. And it also had to do with the timing of the Spring releases, where things were experimental, and then they were going into production there. So what's coming in 4.9? And 4.9 is soon, I've been told. I mean, they don't even tell me dates anymore, so what can I do? But we'll have native support. And you've seen it this morning. And it works on Josh's machine. So it might also work on yours. And it worked on my machine this morning as well. So. Spring Boot DevTools support, you've seen that this morning as well. He started the application just once, right? And the rest was just force a compile, because in IntelliJ, it doesn't automatically compile everything. You just press a shortcut, and then it compiles, and then DevTools takes over, quickly restarts the application side of things, and then you can move on. So that should make development much easier. You've also seen the test containers support So it automatically connects because it recognizes, hey, there's an Axon server test container. Then you probably, we assume, that you will want to connect to that one. Otherwise, why would you start it? So we configure your application to do that. And it works the same way with Spring Docker Compose. So with Spring Docker Compose, what you can do is you can create a Docker Compose file in your project root. And when you start your application from your IDE, it basically starts the Docker Compose file, and it recognizes all the elements in there. So in our case, Axon will recognize Axon Server running in there, and it will set up the connection to Axon Server. So if you use pooled streaming event processors, the new kid in town, and that's the one you should always use. But we noticed that when you start up a new application, you want that load balancing to happen very quickly. Right? And in some cases, what we saw is that a node was asked to, hey, you have to release half of your processing so it can go onto the other machine, and the other machine would take a few seconds to find out. Right? Now we've implemented the instructions to make that happen practically immediately. Right? So the failover or the taking over of processing by other nodes that just started is a lot more efficient. And tracing is very important, obviously, because in a distributed system, if you don't know where things happened and what the root cause of things is, well, happy finding bugs, I guess. And sometimes you want to add custom tags, right? And in 4.9, you will be able to easily add all sorts of customizations for your tracing tools. And then there was Axon 5. And even today, and I think yesterday as well, people asked me, what about Axon 5? Right? We've heard about it last year. It was just an idea. We were sort of mesmerizing about how beautiful it would be, et cetera, et cetera. What happened? And last year, when we presented those ideas, we asked for your opinion on those ideas. And hell, we got it. We got a little bit more than we anticipated, which I think is a good thing, right? It shows that the community cares, and they're really afraid of getting a version that they don't love. Right? But hey, so are we, so we're in the same boat. So thank you for that. And basically what we presented was, well, several items, but the four most important items were, we were thinking of baseline JDK 17. Now, mind you, that was last year, right? That was a century ago. We're now at Java 21. So, okay, people were happy with that, but yeah, 21 is coming up. Yeah, what's with that? And, well, who knows, 22, 23, 24, who knows? But we'll have to pick a baseline somewhere. And Java 21 does have some pretty cool features that are very useful. But it also messed a little bit with the design of the rest. Annotationless configuration. I really don't know why, but people love that, love the idea. Right? Serialization native messages, sounds pretty cool. I don't really know what it is, but it's hard to disagree with, right? Where you build messages that are native to the network. They feel at home on the network, right? That's what you want, and that's important. But reactive APIs, that started to blow people's minds. They were like, wait, are you taking my framework and turning it into something with an API that I don't understand? That was literally what some people said. They were really afraid of, hey, you're forcing this API that generates stack traces that are, well, incomprehensible. There are stack traces turned around, which is funny in itself because stack traces are already turned around. So you would say, now they are upside up for a change. But if you use those, if you use Project Reactor or anything, yes, if you get an exception, it is quite difficult to trace back to exactly where how that exception came to be. So we thought, oh, not everybody loves reactive, right? So we decided, okay, what is it that we really want? Why did we want reactive? Well, we don't want a reactive API, we do, sorry, a reactive library, but we want reactiveness, right? The aspects that make reactive reactive, and not the tools. Right? But we still want to give people the choice of, hey, do you want to take an imperative programming model? Or do you want to take the reactive API approach? And you choose. Right? And of course, message-driven is a very important aspect of that. Functional, right? You have to be able to create lambdas to just describe what behavior you want and then compose those to get the behavior of your system. Streaming and flow control obviously is very important, right? If you do not have flow control, you have no idea how, if you're producing messages at a speed that the consumer of those messages can actually handle them. So they have to have some way of indicating I can handle more or I need less. Right? Error handling is a very important aspect. Things go wrong, and we just have to deal with them somehow. And what we really love, and this is one of the core elements in the framework as well, is lock avoidance. So Axon Framework 4 still has a lot of places where we do locking around aggregates, right? Aggregates is still alive in Axon 4. By killing those, we have a few lock avoidance opportunities, if you will. And of course, debug friendly, because we do know that for most, Axon Framework is a black box, and you build something on top of that black box, and sometimes a problem emerges, and you have to dive into the black box to find out where it came from. Right? Is it your use of the black box? Is it the black box? Etc. So there's a few things that we need to do, and there's a few things we've already done. And some of those never stop. I mean, the POCs and spikes, we've done quite a few. We have a pretty good understanding of where we want to go and how these APIs should look and what it is that we need to build. And we've defined the APIs of the core component. Now we just need to build it. So that's 80% of the work, and that's done, right? And we know that publishing something to Maven Central, we do that, well, maybe not on a daily basis, but okay, let's assign 1% of that. So, and then the remaining 90% is that. So please don't ask me a date. They don't give me a date, let alone I can tell you a date, but it will be somewhere in this century. No. We want to go as fast as we can, but not any faster, and that's really tricky, because if you go faster than you can, you built the wrong thing. Let's move to Axon Server. A lot has happened there. So last year, we announced that we were changing the release cadence. Now, two things can happen. We actually do change the release cadence, or we don't. Right? But we did. And we don't regret that, actually. So the release numbers are no longer attached to the framework. So there's no confusion of which version of server works with which version of framework. They all work together. It doesn't really matter. You can take framework 4.2, and it will work with Axon Server 2023.1, because 2 is not out yet. And the idea of this release cadence is that we will have 3 releases per year. And we hope that strikes a nice balance of people wanting to move to the bleeding edge and make production an exciting place where things can go wrong at any time, but at least you'll have the latest and greatest features. Or you try to stay on the slow side of things and make production a really boring place where nothing ever happens except just whizzing machines and the tic-tac of making money. Who's in the first group? Oh, that's more than I expected. Cool. Rock and roll. All right, so the thing we do is 0 and 1 are our new feature releases. This is where we add features that you think are cool, right? And helpful and useful and maybe a little bit tricky. The 0.2 release is where we go completely safe. There will be nothing really exciting in there. There will be a few minor changes, a little bit of tweaking, mostly around those new features. So if you want to jump from safe haven to safe haven, stick on the 0.2 releases. And then you just have to, well, quote unquote, have to release once a year. You actually don't have to release or upgrade every year. You can, this is what we call a long-term release. Oh, there's one more. I'll talk about long-term releases in a second. So what do we have in 2023.0? And this is where we introduce a concept called tiered storage. When you store events in an event store forever, that actually means it's quite a long time. And the more and more we do this, the more and more we realize it's even longer than we thought it was. So at some point, when you store data, you get to a point where that data just doesn't fit, or economically doesn't fit, that particular disk anymore. And that's a little rabbit, and it's pretty fast, but it's also very expensive. So at some point you think, well, we need to start moving things to something slower and less expensive, and then we can move things over there, right? Because we don't need event or block 0 anymore that often, right? And occasionally we might need it. And then we can move on. We can add more data to the first hard drive, and Axon Server will automatically rebalance and shift data elements from the fast and expensive storage to the slower storage later on. So you can have much better economic decisions on, do we want to keep that data altogether, or do we want to get rid of it, or just store it on slower disks. And that brings me to ephemeral contexts. Because at some point, you might have events that even the cheapest disk out there is too expensive for that data. Right? So at some point, you might want to store to this special place. And that's this place I love. Some people call it Confluence. I call it dev null. And it's a place where you can write, and then you can also read, but it's always empty. And it's a lovely place. It's very stable. So what you can do is you can put stuff in dev null. The problem is you don't really ever know whether the stuff is in dev null, whether it made it into dev null. You get those philosophical questions, right? If you copy something into dev null, did it ever make it there, or was it destroyed before it got there? Anyway, that's my crazy things. A little warning though: if you use this feature, do not think that anyone in our support team, and especially not at 3 a.m. in our nights, can get that data back for you. We do not go into dev null to find it for you, right? You can do that on your own if you want to. All right, so what's new in 2023.1? Because we also had that release. And we had a lot of questions, and there was one this week. How do I migrate from standard edition to enterprise? That was actually quite annoying, right? A lot of teams start with the standard edition of Axon Server and then want to go to the enterprise, and then how do you transfer that data? Well, it's not that complicated, but there's more than one step, right? And you need to know that step, otherwise you might get it wrong. So we decided to just create a single artifact, which means that you can just download from AxonIQ or Docker Hub, whatever your favorite place to grab stuff is. You can just download it and then use the standard features of Axon Server. Right? Very easy. I do that all the time. I use standard edition mostly on my laptop. Right? It's very accessible. And then once you want to upgrade, the only thing you have to obtain is a little license file. And no matter how you get it, you can get one for free for 30 days. Or you've had a chat with our sales team, and then they send you one. And you just put that into your Axon Server cluster, and then, or into your Axon Server node, and then it thinks, hey, now I'm enterprisey. And then you get all the features. And then you add 2 nodes to it, and you have your cluster. So that should make it a lot simpler. And another feature is the unmentionable. There was an unconference session yesterday about event store and evolution. And some people were really surprised that at some point I said, why did you just change the data? But you always say that an event store is immutable. Well, it is, but we don't need to tell everyone. So what we can do is we can take our event store, and we have data in there, and just like coding, when you look back at things, you regret making certain choices. And in code, we can do 2 things: blame somebody else or change the code. So you can do the same in an event store: blame somebody else or change the event. Why not? So if that problem is in those 2 segments, why not just build a slightly modified version of that and then swap them out? Now, when you do this in Axon Server, don't think you get a get out of jail free card. Your name, at least if you have authentication switch on, which you should, your name will be there. Right? People will remember that you did something. there is a log of what transformations have happened over time. Right? So we do keep track of things that change. So if your auditor really doesn't want you to do those transformations, you can prove that they weren't done. By the way, it's something you have to switch on. Right? You have to allow those transformations to happen. So please do not use this to do bug fixes. Right? This is not a SQL update statement. It's not a, oh, did it just change the data, right? Somebody joined a course and then suddenly decided, oh, that was the wrong name of the course. I should have never called it that way. Well, don't change that, right? The effects will be painful if you do. So just use it for data erasure, GDPR-like things, right? Or event structure corrections. Like the structure of the message was wrong. I'm not changing history, I'm just changing the way I describe it. So what's coming next? And as I said, 2023.2, the .2 release is not a release for excitement. It is the most boring release we do in the year. Still exciting though. But it's our long-term support release. This is a release where we say, if you're stuck on this version, you're probably here because you want a stable production environment. Unfortunately, the world around us changes all the time, and there's people finding little issues that they use to use your system in a way that you do not intend your system to be used. So this is the version where for at least 2 years, we will be doing security patches. So you don't even have to jump from one version to the next version automatically, the next .2 version. You can always skip at least one. And we've done some improvements on metrics and observability to make sure that you get all the data that you need to ensure that your system is running. You know, it's just doing the buzz, buzz, click, click, and making money as it's supposed to be and not doing anything weird. From now on, or from then on, whenever it's released, they promised me soon. Nobody knows what that means, but should be next month. You don't have to restart your Axon server instances anymore to do a key rotation for TLS. You can just update the file or the secret. Axon server will detect the change secret and reconfigure the server endpoint to use those new certificates. Right? So certificate rotation doesn't require downtime anymore. So what's coming up next? And this is a little bit of looking further ahead, and you've already seen some of those new features. So I'm not saying these are features for 2024.0, but in the course of 2024 and thereafter. But there's active work being done on revising the dashboard. So the Axon server dashboard is useful, but not beautiful. Right? We want it to be even more useful. And while we change it, we might as well make it a little bit more beautiful. Shouldn't be that hard. And we're working on this dynamic consistency boundaries, right? The story that you've heard about in the keynote. Sounds like an easy task. Well, they're well underway, but there's a lot of stuff involved there, right? We're changing a lot of things, but we're also trying to not change a lot of things. We want this to be somewhat, well, not somewhat, fully backwards compatible with the current state of the framework and the server. So that's a bit of a challenge, but we'll get there. We'll get that aggregate killed and nicely cleaned up. There will be no stains, no memories of the aggregate whatsoever. And other things are command item potency, right? Very often when you have a command and there's a failure, you're not sure, did that failure happen on the way towards the endpoint, or did the connection failure happen on the way back? You don't know. What if it doesn't matter? You just retry the command. You just fire it again. And if it was on the way back, no problem. And yeah, the searching of events, sometimes you just want to figure out what happened. And you want to use Axon Server as a debug environment and find out what did my system do. Synapse. Who's played around with Synapse? Quite a few. New kid in town last year. The beta was announced last year. It's much more stable now. Of course, it's never finished. But But Synapse is basically a gateway, if you will. It's a very small component. It's a gateway that sits between Axon Server and your application landscape. And in this particular case, it does a translation of the the high-performance gRPC protocol, which is not really easy to connect to unless you use the Java connector. But we translate that into a very easy to understand and very easy to use HTTP protocol. And as you can see, the arrows go both ways. So in some cases, especially when streaming events, Axon Synapse will take the initiative to send events to an endpoint that you defined. And it will make sure that certain events are sent concurrently while others are sent in sequence. We wait for the acknowledgement before we send you the new ones. Right? Same with commands. Right? If commands have the same routing key, then the second command with the routing key will wait for the first one to have been acknowledged before we send the next one. So that way you have the same ordering guarantees as you have when using plain Axon Server connectors. So the idea is you just do a post, and then you define an endpoint. You say, hey, these are the commands I want you to send to that particular endpoint. Great. And we have different formats. You can have them raw, which means that the payload of the message becomes the payload of the request. So there's nothing Axon specific in there, except a few headers, and whether you care about them or not is really up to you. But the payload is exclusively defined by you. You can also choose a wrapped approach, and in that case, the JSON message is wrapped in a bit of a R message. And then this is the type of message you would post to get a command into a system. And again, you can choose if you want the payload to be your application payload. So there's nothing Axon specific in here. Okay, there is in this one. You can also choose to just send the payload and then a few headers. That one. There's nothing Axon specific in this payload, right? It's just a gift card and an amount. The Axon stuff is in headers, and it's some of it is optional. Of course, we do need the command name on this one. If you don't like APIs, there's also a UI on it. And some of the lines don't show up, but there's a table there showing you how many endpoints are currently alive, how many of them are failing, etc. So you get a bit of an overview of what's going on. And you can cluster synapses as well. You can have multiple synapses to spread the load, that then spread the load across further. So that's a theory, of course. You can do that. And some people in the community started doing that. That's one. So the Holixon guys, sounds like Holisticon. Is that a coincidence? No, it's not. They thought, hey, why not Python? Let's build something in Python. Let's see if we can... I understood that a machine learning enthusiast started to build this, and hey, you can get your events and start training your models. Great. We have some Rust fanatics. I thought, hey, why not build a sample in Rust? So if you want to see one of those demos, go there and check out the code. And at some point, we were discussing, and this was probably somewhere halfway that mountain that I showed you in the first slide. We thought, why limit ourselves to HTTP? Why just do HTTP requests? Why not have a Synapse that allows you to connect Axon Server to, I don't know, RSocket? It's a nice protocol. Does anyone use RSocket? You should. Give it a try. It's really very, very interesting. Why not Solus? There's a lot of companies that use Solus and Axon in the same place, and hey, we want to connect them. And hell, why not Kafka? Right? We'll put them halfway down the slide. But, okay. There's a place, or there's a reason to connect those things in many environments. And then there's Axon Cloud. And what happened to Cloud? And that was a bit of a tricky. We launched Cloud as a beta because we wanted to learn. And we've learned a lot. We've learned that a very simple formula that has only one variable can be extremely complex to solve if you do not know the value of that one variable. So if the pricing depends on that one variable and you don't know what that variable is, then you don't have an idea what you're going to pay. So we had some difficulty there. So we we've been thinking about what is it that we need in this cloud environment. And a lot of people said, I really like it, but I would like it in my cloud, not in yours. Sorry, in my cloud, not in yours. So we thought, hey, we need to work with those cloud vendors. Let's pick one. We already had a good relationship with Google Cloud. And we thought, okay, let's onboard with them, and let's go for this Google Cloud partnership. If anyone is looking for building up a partnership with Google Cloud, please do not do so right before they fire the entire partnerships team. Right? And that's exactly what happened. So to get those boxes checked took us a little bit longer than we anticipated because they were trying to figure out how they needed to help us check those boxes and who was responsible to do that in the new Google environment. But we managed to do that, so we are now officially a Google certified cloud partner, which is one of the boxes to go to the next step. And this is where we want to be in the Google Cloud Marketplace. Right? And because of that, well, the first step's taking a little bit longer. We ticked a lot of boxes, and there's just one left. It has been there since first we had just one box ticked, and then one left, and then we had 2 boxes ticked and one left. But we're sure this is the last box. So it'll be coming soon, right? There will be marketplace support soon. We also started onboarding with AWS, so that will be the next victim. But what about that box? A lot of people started to ask me about the box, right? What happened to, there was this beta of Inspector Axon. Who knows Inspector Axon? Oh, that's quite a lot. Who's played with Inspector Axon? So we know some of you really love the idea of Inspector Axon. And some of you even asked us to add a tune, not to the build, but when you open the UI, to add the tune of Inspector Gadget as a background. Because it reminded people of that. But the problem with Inspector Axon is that it looked at framework. It just gives you, it takes that black box that is framework, and it makes it a little bit transparent, translucent, so you can look inside and see what's going on inside, which is very useful, but also quite limited. We wanted to have something that would allow you to see the whole thing and connect to everything and manage it from a thing, well, from a console. So some of you might have seen the chats in the Wova app about, hey, what Inspector Axon is still around. I said, well, it's kind of, I haven't heard from him quite a while. Well, it's still around, I'm using it. Well, it's dead. Sorry, no, it's still in production, but we're going to kill it. Oh, thank you. But console is the 2.0 of that. And console looks very familiar, doesn't it? The graph made it. People seem to really like that. And even though there's a bit of UX challenges and there's probably a better way to represent it, it does give very valuable information of how information flows through a system. There will be improvements later on. But the thing is that it allows you to have an overview of the Axon framework application. And this is a screenshot that I've made with my demo app. It's the bike rental app. And you can see there's an Axon server node running on my laptop in this case. It's my laptop name. And you can see it's running on localhost, et cetera, et cetera. But you can see the overview, right? And the idea is that we are going to connect cloud to this as well. So if you say, hey, I want to run an Axon server instance on my machine, great, you can do so. Right? This is how you do it. In fact, if you click the Axon server setup instructions link there, it just gives you a one-liner. You copy-paste that into your terminal, and it downloads and runs Axon server connected to your environment. Right? It doesn't send any data there. It just sends liveness probes and statistics. But you can also, well, the idea is, very soon, that you'll be able to launch an Axon server cluster in our cloud environment, or in yours, right, with Google Cloud Marketplace, whatever you want, wherever you like to run it. And if you want to, you can monitor it from here. So if you want to give that a try, and I just realized that console is not the type of application you want to use on your phone, but at least you can get the URL. You don't have to type anything. You can just take a snap of that. And as you can see, we have a lot of plans with AxonIQ console. Right now, we're in beta, which means that everything you see, you can just grab, use, and use for free. That one feature that's available, there's a little asterisk. It will not remain entirely free forever, but there will always be a free tier, right? So everything you see can be used within certain bounds for free forever. And that brings us to the future. How am I doing on time? How much overtime am I? Oh, there's only drinks after this, right? And we said the future is event-driven. And the funny thing is, if you talk about the future for long enough, it's not the future anymore. It becomes the present. And looking at the kind of show of hands every time I ask the question, and I think this event-driven thing is not really a thing of the future anymore. We're living it. We're in it. It's just happening right now. And the present is also endless discussions about whether monoliths are good, or do we do microservices, or no, it's monoliths are bad, you should do a modulith. What's the difference? Well, it's a well-designed monolith. Okay, do we care about poorly designed stuff? No, so why not call it a... It's discussions and discussions and discussions. But the thing we really want is to be able to evolve. Right? We want to have an evolutionary architecture, not a revolutionary architecture. We want to be able to build something and then make it change all the time. And whether that is a monolith or microservices or both at the same time, why not? If we can have I, which is the square root of -1, then why can't we have both microservices and monoliths at the same time? So evolutionary, don't make microservices. Maybe allow yourself to evolve into those microservices. That is what we believe in is the future. Right? The monoliths are good, but they might not be forever. And also event-driven, right? We call it event-driven, but there's more than events, right? There's at least the commands and the queries, and we've been talking a lot about them as well. So we have to think beyond the event-driven part. So just to summarize that, and this is just blah, 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 of course, but we believe that the future is about evolutionary microservices that go beyond event-driven. And with that, I'd like to conclude this part of the talk. Thank you. And because there's drinks, I will move right on to the closing of the conference. Some of you are really eager to get to that door. And there's a few really anxious people here on the first rows, because they've been told that stay close to the stage. Because I would like to thank a few people. I mean, I'm here on stage. I'm proud to be the face of a lot of the things that we do, but I'm definitely not the hands of the things that we do. Right? A lot of people have put sweat and blood, hopefully not too much blood, and tears into making all of this happen. And with all of this, I really mean all of it, including today. So first of all, I would like to thank you, and please give a big applause to yourselves. Because without you, none of that would be here. But to make it a little bit less generic, I would like to thank this person, Marina. She loves being on stage. This is where she was born, right? This is where you feel at home. But she did a tremendous job to make sure that, well, we were all here and we had a place to stay today, and we could all find the same place, that we had speakers, that we had stuff to eat. So Marina, thank you so much for that.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure to do this conference and this year and last year. And as you all know, there is no conference without a program. So huge thanks to our speakers. Yeah, we hope you like their presentations and that you learn a lot today, and you can put it in practice in your next experiences. Also, big thanks to our sponsors. I hope you had a great day today and nice conversations, and we hope to see you here maybe next year. And of course, none of this would happen.
It's always a bit awkward if they ask you to put your own face on the slide. But as you can see, it's very small. Because I might be on there, but I'm not alone. And I would like to thank a specific person for believing in some of the really stupid and crazy ideas that I had about 7 years ago. And thinking, hey, let's build a business out of this and see what happens. So Jeroen, you're not escaping fate. But let's be honest. Even, see how they move in the corner, right? Even they, or even we, could not have done it, just the two of us. And there's a huge team. I'd like to ask everybody who can see their own picture on here, please get on stage, and you know who I mean. This is why we wanted you close to the stage. I want you to experience what it is to be on stage. It always looks like more when you see them all together. Now, I want you to count the number of seconds it takes for the first food to appear. So I would like to know, did you have a nice day today? Yes, right. Would you like to do it again? Yes. Did you guys have a good day today? Would you like to do it again? They had one instruction. When a question is asked, just say yes. They've been scared all day, so. But it wasn't that scary. No, I would like to, is there? Yes, there's room. I would like to announce that, yes, we've decided already that we're going to do this again next year. AxonIQ Conference 2024. And in fact, we even know when. So unlike last year, where we said, let's see how this works out, because we're not too sure if we want to, in-person events. It's kind of scary, right, after 2 years of COVID. But please mark your calendars, 25 and 26 of September, obviously in 2024. And in fact, registration is open. So if you want to make sure that you're the earliest bird in town, this is your opportunity to do so. And with that, I would like to say, so is the bar. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the evening. There will be drinks at the bar. Enjoy. If you want to have a live demo of Console, please meet Mitchell around the corner, and he'll be showing you how it works. Enjoy.